Well, Rana is Professor of History and Director of the China Centre at Oxford University.
The mood music in this meeting was really pretty positive. It was clear that both sides, the Chinese side and the American side, are keen to lower the temperature in what's often a very turbulent relationship. And there are practical takeaways, including in particular the return of military to military conversations and contacts that suggest that both sides are very keen to try and make sure the relationship is productive, even if it's not necessarily very warm. The fact that agreement has been reached, at least in some areas, on this very contentious topic is a sign that maybe even when they have political differences, China and the US will be able to act together in certain areas for the greater good. So that's a good sign.
What comes next, I guess, is the real balancing act, isn't it? I mean, how do you foresee economic interests of each country and national security considerations being balanced in the relationship?
Yes, the really difficult part of the relationship between the two is that there are some areas that are simply incompatible in the views of each country's national security worldview. So the United States is making it very clear that some of the very highest ends of technology, areas where the United States has a lead, both in terms of research and in terms of partnerships around the world, it's keen to make sure that China does not get a lead in those sorts of areas. And it's pretty upfront about the fact that it will continue economic policies that do not allow those technologies to come to China. On the Chinese side, China has been pushing much harder on the idea that it wants to restrain as much industrial and technological production at home as possible.
President Xi delivered a positive message to US business leaders in San Francisco. I mean, how do you interpret his remarks regarding China being what he described as a big market and a friend to the United States?
The size of China's market isn't in doubt. I think one of the things that's useful to China is to have American and other Western firms in the country. If they were all basically thrown out, then there would be very little opportunity for China to use its economic connections with the United States to essentially push for geopolitical goals. So it's got an interest in having American firms there. That said, big firms, Apple would be an example, make an awful lot of money in China. And therefore, there's a symbiosis between the two sides in which it's clearly going to be the case that there'll be an American presence in China in business terms for quite some time to come.
Just looking ahead, is the expectation now unabated improvements in this relationship? Do you anticipate a sustained improvement in China-US relations based on the outcomes of this summit, or do you still see many insurmountable challenges ahead?
I think there are a lot of challenges for the medium term. The fact is that the United States and its allies are going to continue to be a major presence in Asia for years, probably decades to come. That includes, of course, Japan, South Korea, Philippines, Singapore. So that will be there for a long time. But in the short term, yes, I do expect actually that things will be calmer. Certainly for the next year or so, both the United States and China have a vested interest in getting the economy firing again. And for that, you need geopolitical calm and stability. We have wars in the Middle East. We have wars in Eastern Europe. I think both the US and China know that any kind of conflict in the Asia-Pacific region will be a disaster, not just in human terms, but also in terms of the global economy. And I think both sides are going to restrain themselves to try and prevent that outcome.